welcome to Cinema Clash. We have a special episode here today. This is going to be our top 10 movies of 2011. I'm Kyle Cicilioni, and today I am joined by...
Alex Zarnoski.
And Sean Gay.
Welcome, gentlemen. So I know that the Cinema Clash is kind of a, battle-oriented, fictional universe of debating. But I think just to kind of spice things up, we're going to do random episodes where we talk about different things. So like specific moments of the year, like now when everyone's rattling off their top 10. I figure we'll do a top 10 episode. And we may do like an Oscar one or summer movies, something anyway. So we're going to throw them in randomly whenever they're appropriate, I guess. So I just wanted to kind of go over a basic overview of like 2011. I don't know how you guys felt, but I know I felt that 2011 was kind of like lackluster with any, how do I say it? Like kind of huge movies that were very, impacted me as much as like last year's movies did, for example.
I would say it's kind of a mixed bag. There were the movies that stood out from the rest. I mean, you had a whole slew of Marvel movies, then you had your independents, and then now you're starting to see at the end of the year all the movies that are going to be considered for, Oscar nominations, which will be announced, I guess, later this month, probably the 27th, I think. But yeah, I agree with you. But that being said, I think that we had a pretty good year for more independent kind of productions.
Yeah, I will say, putting together my top 10, I was having a hard time fitting in most movies. Like, there was a lot of movies there was like 4 or 5 movies that were fighting for the 10th spot of my list. Whereas last year, the top 6 were like perfect lock-ins, but then I was having trouble filling the last couple. Because I feel like last year, the good movies that came out last year were really good. And I think there's more decent movies this year than last year, but I think last year had better movies.
Yeah, they had the ones that actually you could pick up 5 off the bat that just stood out.
Inception, Social Network, Black Swan,
right. And I feel like I learned, I always learn about those movies after the fact because either they were in limited release, like we got really lucky. I'll just tell about it right now. Like we got to see Take Shelter, and that was a movie that was not widely released. And once it came to a theater that was 40 minutes away, we took the time to go and see it because you know what? That was one of those just diamonds in the rough.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies that you just you won't get it until it's on DVD.
And that's one movie, I was reading a lot of people's reviews and top 10s, and that was one movie that a lot of people didn't get the chance to see, like you said.
Right.
And we'll get to it in a bit, but that's kind of a shame because that movie was really...
Well, I mean, not only this, but this year was completely economy-driven. I mean, you think about it, like, most of the movies that were made this year were restarts of old series, refreshers, and if not, they were, especially in this summer was by far the most lackluster in a few years, in my opinion.
I agree. And that's depressing because it had such a positive anticipation for it. Like, I was like, oh man, this is going to be like the best year for summer movies. There's all these, it's like all comic books and superheroes. Yeah. And then it came out and I really only enjoyed like 2 movies this entire summer.
I think that just is showing that the public is finally getting over this Marvel superhero age and that, superheroes are going to slowly but surely not be the trendsetter for the next few summers. Or over the time, so.
Well, now we have the Avengers. It's all coming to its focal point.
Yeah. That's going to be the ultimate test, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway,
then we go back to Spider-Man, and it all starts over again.
Yeah, that's true. That comes out next summer, too. Yeah, next summer is going to be good, too, I think. I think it's going to be, well, hopefully, better than last summer, although it doesn't need to do much to do that.
No.
So anyway, moving on here. We're going to hear top 10 movies of 2011 from Sean. So, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, my top 10 this year is by far, I'd have to say, is extremely by far, the most lackluster of my list I've ever done. Looking through the year, I actually had to go back to the beginning to see if some of the films I've seen were still before the year cut. And as you can tell, my number 10 choice was The Muppets, believe it or not. I thought it was the best if not the best restart of Jim Henson's Muppets in a while. I think it's the fact being a child, it was just the greatest way to rehash those old nostalgic moments.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed the Muppets a lot, actually. I liked the soundtrack, especially, on that movie, was really good.
Oh, yeah. I was extremely impressed with that. And then I'll be a little disappointed if I do not see Academy Award nods towards that soundtrack.
Right.
Music, so...
Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to see it, but based on everybody that I've talked to who has seen it, it's always a 2 thumbs up. Go for it. Go to see it in the theaters while it's still there. So,
yeah, I think it was just great, as far as just for nostalgia's sake, to see the opening of the Muppet Show in full widescreen on the big screen. And I think that's what really kind of hit home for most people, especially if you grew up with it.
Oh, yeah. Of course. And that leads me to number 9, which is a summer movie, and the only summer movie I thought was worth my time, and I'm very impressed by it, was X-Men First Class. And the reason I put it on my top 10 was mostly because I thought it was the best restart of a series, and I think it's been the most enjoyable of all of the X-Men combined.
I definitely agree with you there. Especially
for being just a prequel to everything that started. I mean, if you're a comic book, junkie, you might, of course, find the film a little bit lackluster, or, of course, not accurate to the tale. But I'm not one to argue with that. But the overline action was by far the best of the summer. So easily gets my number 9.
Yeah. I will say, I'll get to that later, but X-Men First Class was one of the movies that was fighting for the 10th spot.
Okay. Number 8, December movie, Adventures of Tintin.
Hey.
Just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I really can't say anything but that. The 3D was enjoyable, and my eyes weren't blinding. The storyline itself, I don't like the fact that they sell it as a Pirates of the Caribbean meets Indiana Jones, because I think it itself is a completely by itself own spectacle. So
completely agree with that.
Yeah, and I know that it's going to be funny because Alex's and I's top 10 will probably be. I don't know. We haven't discussed our top 10 together.
I'm very interested in what you're. Yeah.
Relatively similar, because we did go see a lot of the movies together this year.
Yes.
And Tintin was one of them.
Yeah, Tintin. You'll be surprised where Tintin is for me. Not really surprised, but it's, spoiler alert, it might be number 8.
Uh-oh. Well, that brings me to 7, and I have to say for indie films, as we were talking about, definitely a huge impact this year, but I felt like they were just way too independent this year. You guys were talking about the fact you guys had to drive 40 minutes for one film.
Yeah.
I had to go to Philadelphia to see Midnight in Paris, which is my number 7 choice. And I mean, for me, that's almost an hour and a half. Wow. And I did go to drive it, and it's not like I specifically went to Philadelphia only to see it. I'm not that dedicated, sorry. But when I did see it, I was extremely impressed with Owen Wilson and Woody Allen, of course. And I thought it was I think it's one of my favorite Woody Allen films of all time. And that doesn't say much if it's number 7, so. But
yeah, definitely. With Woody Allen, it's so weird. I'd probably get flamed for saying this, but I actually enjoy his newer movies more than his other stuff. Match Point might be my favorite Woody Allen film, which is so weird because it's not a very typical Woody Allen film. Mm-hmm. But I really enjoy that. I really enjoyed Scoop. It was a cute little, quick, fun movie. I enjoyed that a lot. And I didn't get to see, what was the one that came out? Was it last year with Larry David? And I know you saw it, Sean.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. That was a couple years ago.
Whatever works.
Whatever works.
Yeah, something like that. And that was pretty much Curb Your Enthusiasm in a nutshell.
Exactly.
Which is fine by me, because I love my Curb.
Yeah.
I think I'd appreciate it more now if I saw it again, because of how much Larry David has grown on me over the years.
It takes a while for that man to grow on you.
he will be a terrible person to lose in the business. I'll tell you that.
I think a lot of Woody Allen's films, like his style is solidifying right now, and that's why I think that you made a comment that Kyle made a comment that you're kind of enjoying his movies now more than ever. And yeah, I could see how you would get flamed for that because some of his greatest works are back, when he was in his prime.
And I'm not saying I don't love Annie Hall. Annie Hall is probably my favorite Woody Allen movie. But
right.
Still, I think just overall,
Manhattan, Annie Hall. I mean, they're all awesome, but I think that he's solidifying his style from maybe Bananas and or Sleeper or whatever, with Midnight in Paris and Scoop and all these other modern takes on maybe blending his comedy with the contemporary filmic style.
Right.
Yeah. I mean. So that leads me to number 6. This is my restart choice of the year, next to X-Men. I think it did better, and that was Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I don't know, like I said, summer movies this year were lackluster, but this movie had the best animation in the sense of 3D output. Not only it was just the graphics itself, and the scene on the bridge with the San Francisco Bridge. It's probably my favorite. And Caesar, as a kid, was just such a cool character. I don't know why I was attracted to gorillas, but apparently I was.
I know. Andy Serkis deserves some sort of recognition for this. He's better as a monkey than most people are as humans.
That might be true, but he's getting a lot of flack because he is the prime example of an actor that can take over virtually and take away from other actors' jobs. Yeah. And he gets flack for that, but you know what? He's an A+ in my book for what he does do.
Yeah.
And number 5, this is easily my number 1 choice on every list for one of my favorite directors, and it got a lot of slack on critics' point of books, but that was definitely Sucker Punch. I couldn't believe it actually came out this year. I thought it came out in December, but
yeah, it came out in March or February, right?
Yeah, March. And this movie was just everything I wanted in a film. You got the attractive, female protagonists. You got the endless amounts of entertainment in terms of random use of different genres of nerdom. I mean, you got your steampunk, you got your samurai swords. It was just everything.
If you are a man and don't find at least one aspect of this movie appetizing, then there's something wrong with
you. And that's what I would say. And I understand the overall, even that, but the dream sequence kind of almost dream sequence hero storyline it had. I could see people kind of being wow, this is kind of bizarre, but just to me it was everything I wanted in a film, and it was definitely, I was completely immersed in it, and by the end of it I was completely satisfied with my $9 I paid for it. So
yeah. I felt similarly about Sucker Punch. I think I liked it. I think I sympathized with it more because of the amount of hate it got, and I can see generally why people didn't like it, but I think overall it's not even close to as bad as what half the people were saying. And that's just sad because there's definitely something to like in it. One or the other, there's something to like, and Sucker Punch didn't make my top 10, but it definitely made my honorable mentions this year, and. It's not for everyone, but I think it's just sad that a movie like that kind of just fell apart, which is a lot better than what most people thought of it.
Oh, you also have the only thing I would also add on to that was the soundtrack issue. A lot of people gave up, and I can definitely relate to that. I think that the film, by any means, you do not need to add a genre of music that is extremely, I don't know, techno meets goth type stuff.
Yeah.
So. There's only so many different variations of Sweet Dreams I can hear. And that's all I'll say. And that brings me to number 4. And I will choose. I chose. Rango, an animated film.
Mm-hmm.
Also, real early in the year. Johnny Depp, an actor that I have a love-hate relationship with his roles, mostly of the hype, but just something about that him playing a animated lizard chameleon is just one of my absolute favorites, and I can't really say anything other than that. The fact that it was just so funny and so enjoyable. And I'm usually the last person to give my enjoyment from an animated film, so
I know Alex and I have talked a lot about Rango, and you're going to be very surprised to see that it is in my top 10, but where it is in my top 10.
Okay.
But we'll get to that when I get to it. But yeah, Rango is... If it doesn't take the animated Oscar this year, I'm going to be very disappointed, because if there's a year for it to win, it's this year.
Well, it's that Hugo debacle that I would easily talk about later. But, and so that brings me to number 3. Number 3 being the only movie I'll give this mention to out of the entire long series is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. And the reason I put it so far up there is because if you take the whole series, this is the only film I enjoyed. It's the only book I didn't like, and I was so impressed with the adaptation of it. And I thought it was just the action suspense movie that made me enjoy it. And, it's a culmination of everything. You have, like, the finale of the final fight between Voldemort and Harry. I mean, everything. And it was just... It's surprising to see, looking back, that you got Lord of the Rings, who I think they won a total of 15-some Oscars from the entire trilogy. And then you got, like, Harry Potter, the I don't know what you call it, the series itself. And it hasn't even taken home one yet. And I think this year it might get something, like, a little offbeat, but I think it has to get some sort of nomination. Or
I think if it gets anything, this is the year for it to get it. Over the years since it's been coming out, the first one came out, it was a little cheesy, maybe, blah, 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 whatever you want to say about it. But each film as it went got more... The quality was increased by every movie that came out. So obviously, therefore, making the last film, of almost the best quality, arguably. And I would agree with most you said about Harry Potter. It's a really good wrap-up of the whole series.
And that brings me to my top 2. My top 2 easily can be switched or interchanged. But if I had to make the list as we speak, number 2 would be David Fincher's attempt at The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Attempt?
Well, you have to give credit to the Swedish version.
Yeah.
And I say attempt because I feel like there's more versions like are coming out because this book is becoming so, like, renowned. And if you have not read the book, I highly recommend it. But David Fincher does an incredible job at this adaptation. And I have to say, like, not with, like, much spoilers, but the rape scenes, it's kind of hard to talk about, but the rape scene itself was so well, like, executed that, I don't know, I was just so...
Sean is an expert at rape, I just want to point that out.
Yes,
Oh, now I know.
It's just, the scene was so well done, and I don't know where they found her, but Rooney Mara, I believe her name is.
Yeah.
Her role as Elizabeth Slander, the main protagonist, she is just outstanding, and I really hope that she takes it this year for female role. I mean,
she was the girlfriend of Jesse Eisenberg as Mark Zuckerberg in Social Network at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the same girl, which I didn't point it out to me when I saw the previews for Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I go, oh my god, I didn't realize it. She was like, she looks totally different. And
not only that, but I really enjoyed Daniel Craig a lot more, seeing him, like, not in the Bond role, even though I think him as James Bond is my favorite. It's just I think it really shows Daniel Craig's like fire and the potential he has. I mean, I've only seen him in the Polish World War II veteran movie. I think it was called like Defiance.
Yeah.
And that was enjoyable, but like, I mean, it was overall like the action gritty kind of like storyline, so it was more or less him shooting a gun still.
Yeah.
But him playing such a like male, masculine like character such as Michael Blomkvist, it was just, I really enjoy him as that character. So
Yeah, unfortunately I did not get to go see Girl with the Dragon Tattoo this year.
Yeah, same for me. I hear a lot of good things, and I love Fincher's
there was
work.
a lot of movies to go see this year.
Yep.
if anything, I recommend you two just to watch the introduction. Like, the David Fincher goes into like a, it doesn't even have to do anything with the film, but like the way it starts off is this like gelatinous like
I've
oil.
seen it.
Yeah,
That's the part I have seen. Yeah, with the I saw a video with it of the Immigrant Song covered by somebody.
Yeah, it's some sort of new age progressive rock band. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that leads me to my last choice, and easily, like I said, these two could be interchanged, but it has to be Drive. Oh my gosh. I don't know. This movie, to me, was exactly why you go to a cinema, and I think it like is everything I want to go to a cinema. It has enough, like, you know, neo-noir type like setting. That's my absolute favorite setting usually. I have an attractiveness to like protagonists that like are usually silent or have some sort of like huge moral dilemma.
Or V-neck shirts or any... No.
Yeah. And it either, I mean, Ryan Gosling, for example, is just, it's interesting to see him in a role as a silent type for most of the film. And then it does help that the film has the best use of a shotgun ever in
I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah.
So,
Can't
and the soundtrack.
disagree.
Yeah.
Well, what is your best use of shotgun? Do you know off chance?
What's that?
Is that what you said? Did you?
No, I said I couldn't disagree if I tried. I mean, that's,
okay.
I completely agree. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah, and it's not only that, but it was funny because like all the other actors in the film were like usually some sort of random main TV series like character, and it was just kind of bizarre to me to watch it with them in there. They all had short roles. You know, you got Bernie Perlman, Sons of Anarchy,
Yeah.
Bryan Cranston, Breaking Bad,
Albert
Right.
Brooks,
yep. And then,
who I will say was fantastic in that film too.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
So all right, very good top 10. Alex, what is your top 10 of 2011?
Okay, so I had a very difficult time choosing a top 10. I swear I would rather have done a top 15 than a top 10, because for me, like, you mentioned Rango, and I honestly didn't even have it listed here. I couldn't remember all the movies I saw this year. And that's pretty bad, but there were just so many different ways to approach there's so many different ways to approach a top 10 list. You can go by just what was your favorite, or what movies are deserved of the placement. But like, I think it's all about your enjoyment, and well, I would start with my runner-ups, which would be Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and Mission Impossible 4, because they would take 11 and 12, if you will, because they're just two movies that I had. One, Tinker Tailor, didn't plan on seeing, and when I did see it, I couldn't believe how well made that film was. And after reading about it, and learning a little bit more about what was going on, I really want to watch it for a second time, because it was based on a book, and a lot of the relationships and a lot of the touches, such as glasses, for example, were really relevant to the story and had a lot of subtextual meaning that we probably wouldn't understand if you're just watching it for the first time.
Yeah.
But it was a really well-made movie, and if Gary Oldman doesn't get an Oscar nod, I would, and he may not, I don't know. I'd be surprised.
I echo everything you said about that film. It didn't make my top 10, but it's something to talk about, and it's definitely a film that it's definitely going to increase in value over multiple watches.
Right. And just to wrap up with number 11 here, Mission Impossible 4 was just the most fun action movie that I watched all year long. Period. It made my hands sweat. It made me nervous. And I couldn't say that for a lot of the movies that came out this year. It really, really played with my emotions in a way that no other film has for a very long time. So I have to give it the 11 spot nod. But now on to the top 10. My number 10 spot is Young Adult, and I'm giving it number 10 because it had to make my list. I couldn't place it anywhere, and I wanted to give it a spot because it was just, it was original. I can't remember who wrote it. What's her name?
Diablo Cody was the writer.
Diablo Cody, yeah.
Jason Reitman directed it, and they were the team to do Juno.
Juno, right. She just has a really unique style, and I'm hoping that her, you always want to see somebody reach their full potential, and I think that she's just one of those writers that is going to do that very soon. She's really good. And
I think this, the writing for Juno, I know you specifically weren't 100% of a fan, but this one wasn't as, what's
the word? Juno had it's almost like the writing in Juno had its own place in the film. I know that's kind of obvious to say, but I think that it was deliberate. Just the way her language, Juno's language was a little bit too, she was a little bit too old for her age, but that's what also made her Juno.
Exactly. So,
I think she toned it down and yet still kind of pulled from what she knows, which is writing, and the main character in this movie is a writer. Anyway, it was a very awesome film. I'd recommend seeing it. Number 9, Harry Potter. And it's at number 9 only because I feel like Harry Potter had to make the list. It was the last Harry Potter film. It was the best Harry Potter film, in my opinion, out of all of the series. I mean, I guess if you want to consider part 1 and part 2 together, I'm going to do that as one film. As soon as that Blu-ray comes out, I'm ripping it and stitching that into one long-ass movie.
Yeah.
just for fun. But Harry Potter, visually, as soon as the soundtrack came out for it, too, I mean, there was a big difference between the sound for this movie and all previous movies put together. It just had so much of a more, I can't even think of the word for it. It just had a lot of body. It had I don't know. Just something about it. It's like they just said, all right, screw it. We're going up balls to the walls with this movie.
A War of Valkyries, if you so to speak,
What's that?
Like a War of Valkyries, so to speak,
Yeah, something like that. Very, a lot of use of the trumpets, in the main theme. So, I was really trying not to pick movies that have already been, I'm not trying to choose sequels here. Because I don't think it's fair to put sequels on a top 10 because they've already had their chance to shine. But you know what? Harry Potter really, this was the last movie, and it made some sort of impression on me. Then I'm going to go with Tintin. And Tintin was, I agreed with you 100% on the whole like Pirates of the Caribbean. Come on. That was such garbage, the way they had to promote that movie. But after having seen the movie, it was the most real. There are 2 movies this year that stand out for CG, and the other is Rango. And I can't decide which movie is more impressive to sit there and just drool over, in terms of visuals. But I grew up watching Tintin, and I think it was really important that if you were either going to like it or not like it after watching it, based on the fact that you either watched it when you were young or you didn't. Because
right.
a lot of the comments I heard were like, it was okay. I wish there could have been more here or there or whatever. But if you grew up watching Tintin, you knew that, you knew Snowy's, the way about Snowy. He's always helping out, Tintin in his little dog ways, and he's a character in himself. And I think that just comes off as, it's a goofy dog, kind of like Pork Chop on Doug.
I agree with what you said. If you don't know the universe of Tintin, you can't appreciate this movie as much. And that goes with saying with most films, if they're adapted from something or if they're a remake. So, like Sean was saying about Girl with the Dragon Tattoo as well.
Yeah.
And not only that, but like you take the Adventures of Tintin real quick, and it's like we're reaching the age for us that we're reaching, like, you know, they're making films about our childhood, but they're good family dramas that you can like take your kids to go see.
Right.
And then by doing that, you're getting nostalgia, and your kids are getting introduced to this, you know, immersed universe of Tintin, for example.
Yeah.
So.
Right. And again, nod to Andy Serkis for the voice of Haddock. He was. Yeah. I had no idea that was him until you told me. Until Kyle told me.
I had to look at it like.
I was not aware.
10 minutes into the film because I go, this voice is so familiar.
What a performance! Yeah. Seriously, I didn't.
He is so much better off screen than he is on screen.
I don't think I saw. What would I have seen him in on screen? I don't.
The Prestige.
Know. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay.
That's I don't know. That's like the most recent notable one, I would say.
Yeah. Well, anyway, go ahead.
Oh wait, is he in King Kong? I know he does the motions for King Kong, but I feel like he's in it at some point too.
I heard that he played a very small role in King Kong, where he gets eaten alive or something.
Oh, anyway, you're right. He's the cook.
The cook.
Yeah.
All right, I'll move away from Tintin on to Super 8. And Super 8, it's almost like watching a movie it took place in 79, I believe, the events, but it's like watching a movie out of the 80s again, like Steven Spielberg with E.T. This was just the contemporary version of E.T.
Yep.
And it was really impressive to watch the chemistry develop between the kids in that movie. They were just so good at making you believe that these were just kids running out, causing trouble, making movies.
Could not agree with you more there.
I mean, J.J. Abrams is another up-and-comer. He's been around for a while, and his father has been in the industry for years. But, working... So he worked with Steven Spielberg on the film. He'd worked with Steven Spielberg cutting film for him, cutting his 16mm or 8mm film when he was a kid. And there's the relationship. Now he's his executive producer, and J.J. Abrams is directing. And J.J. Abrams even had to postpone Star Trek just for this film. It took 2 to 4 years to make.
Yeah,
it took a long time to make this film. But I can't say too much about it, because if you haven't seen it, I don't want to give anything away, and I respect that. Like, it's like watching Lost, or it's like watching what's the other movie he produced?
Cloverfield.
Cloverfield. So I don't want to give anything away, but like CG wise, great effects in the movie. But it's really all about the relationship between the kids and the parents that. It really sold me on. It just made me feel nostalgic or something. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I had that Goonies feel, so I could.
Yeah, Goonies feel. Moving on to Rango at number 6, because what better person could play a little tiny gecko or lizard than Johnny Depp? I mean, for me, I think it was most impressive visually, and the fact that it's been done before in stuff like Polar Express, but they're really acting out every single thing that you see in that movie. And they're basing every animation on the actors' performances, and all of their voice acting came from the live performances. So that's just a really revolutionary way to, I guess if you call it filming a CG movie, or capturing the audio, capturing a performance. Number 5, Take Shelter. Again, can't talk too much about this one as far as I would like to, but as far as character development goes for what's his name,
Michael Shannon.
Michael Shannon. He did a really good job with this character. And Michael Shannon first impressed me in Road. What the hell is the movie called?
Revolutionary Road.
Revolutionary Road.
Yeah.
He
plays mentally unstable characters extremely well.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. But Take Shelter, it was so simple, yet it was so powerful at the same time, just because of what the events and the changes he was going through. Again, it's another one of those movies that you probably didn't see it if you weren't in a major metropolitan area or took the time.
And that's a shame too, because it's a fantastic movie.
Right. The visuals were simple. I mean, it didn't really require much. It looked like it was a very nice, homely set to work on. Not much, action, but it looked like the acting. The acting just blew me away in that movie. And then what's her name? Yeah. The redhead. Jessica. Yeah, she's
having a heck of a year too. I might say she was in Take Shelter, The Help, which I mean I'm not a girl, but I heard that was very good, and Tree of Life. So she's having a great year. Never even heard of her too before this year too.
I know. And good transition here. Speaking of the Tree of Life is my number 4. Again, what's her name just did a phenomenal job and with mothering those children.
Yeah.
And Tree of Life is a.
It's so hard to describe that movie. Yeah. It's so hard.
It's on the experimental side, but it's also coming from a director who is just as, I guess you would say, eccentric in his ways, or just as experimental in life. Because if you watch the extras on the Blu-ray, you'll understand that anything went on this. Anything goes. That was the key right there. The actors, the extras, they basically rented out an entire neighborhood. The extras would just jump rope all day if they needed them to jump rope. They would just continue living life as though they were not on a movie set. They were paid to play. Kids were paid to play on the set.
That's pretty sick.
All day long. Just I think his approach to making the film impressed me the most, just as a filmmaker. So I guess you could tell what I'm really looking at judging a top 10 list here is just what went into making these films and the result. If you're not really into sitting through a movie that's about 2 hours long and paying attention to little to no dialogue, you're not gonna. I don't think you're gonna like the film. You really
this
have to
is a very hit or miss movie with audiences.
Yeah.
And even not even from reading. I mean, just me from personal experience. Like, if you aren't completely awake, this is not a movie you can watch at 1 a.m. before you go to sleep. It's not something like that. You need to be 100% attentive to actually fully kind of enjoy or appreciate the movie.
Well, I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that I don't think a lot of people would love to be 100% attentive while watching this movie. It's probably going to turn into some sort of Blue Planet or Planet Earth or whatever.
Yeah,
for a lot of kids. It's going to be one of those movies oh yeah, that movie has a lot of colors and a lot of crazy cool shots. Just one more thing about the visuals in that movie. They created a lot of those space visuals. For those who have seen the movie, a lot of that was done in camera and then just blended in CG. So that was most impressive. A lot of the planets getting overtaken by the sun. Yeah, it's the Tree of Life. I'm talking about the creation of the universe. I mean, it explores everything. Moving on to the top 3 here. I couldn't really pick an order, but number 3 turned out to be Drive because it was badass. And as soon as it hits Blu-ray, I'm probably going to just go out and buy
24th.
it. 24th? Okay. That'll happen. Again, Ryan Gosling. I just watched Lars and the Real Girl today a little bit.
You finally saw it?
No, I saw it. I had seen the movie prior to watching it today, but he just watching his career. I've heard the comment he is the up and coming Brad Pitt. In what he does, he's got the looks, he's got the acting skills, He has the diversity in his roles, which is really rare. I mean, Brad Pitt, the way Brad Pitt works is he goes project by project. He's not tied on to anything in the future. No contracts. And I think that Gosling is starting to do that more so. He has a very good, diverse library.
He's having a great year, too. I mean, he was in Drive, he was in Ides of March, and he was in
Crazy Stupid Love.
Something about love.
Crazy Stupid Love.
Yes, that movie.
Yeah, and I saw both. Crazy Stupid Love, Drive. Well, those are the only two I saw. I didn't see all of them, but blending the 80s with a contemporary setting was really genius, I thought. And the way it was paced out is another thing that's really notable about this. I mean, the pacing of the movie. That's every step of the way, every corner they turn. It's all taken in good time. Nothing is rushed in the movie. And when you need to, yes, I hope there is an Oscar nomination category. There's a category for best use of shotgun, because I would totally vote for this movie for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to say one more thing about the shotgun. I clearly will never. That was the only time I've ever spat out something at a movie theater. Because it was obviously, like you said, the slow pacedness. You weren't expecting that, and
yeah,
right. Yep.
My mouth was open for a good 20 minutes after that happened.
Yeah. Yep. Number 2, Hugo. Best use of 3D all year long, and in relation to what you said about Tintin, Sean, I thought that the 3D is not worth seeing in Tintin. It was subpar. I mean, I don't know if it was our theater or not, but like parts of the screen were blurry.
Okay.
I don't know who to blame for that, but I didn't.
Yeah,
think
I did see
effective.
what Alex in 3D, and even the parts that were in 3D for Tintin, I wasn't too enthralled with anyway.
Well, the big difference between the two, well, Hugo actually used the actual 3D camera, didn't they? Wasn't the big difference between the two, I believe? Or did they both use...
Well, Hugo was definitely shot in 3D.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Tintin. It's digital, so I mean, I don't know how, as far as that goes, I'm not sure how that works.
And I don't think, I don't think it makes a difference whether or not a movie is shot in 3D or not. I mean, even if,
does.
even I'll get to that in a second. Harry Potter was not shot in 3D. It was upconverted to 3D, and there were some uses of 3D that actually did work very well. But there are movies that are shot in 3D that just do not make use of the 3D.
Okay.
For example, Lord of the Rings is being completely shot on parallel the camera, RED, Scarlets. So they're both parallel in 48 frames per second. That's going to give an excellent, that's the proper way to shoot 3D. Right there. But when it doesn't pop out at you, or when it doesn't really tickle your fancy, whatever you want it to do to make it really, I thought Jackass 3D was a very great use of 3D for the stuff that they showed. It worked. Underworld 3D, I'm guessing a lot of it is going to be gimmicky. But I'm going to say right now, Hugo, it's Martin Scorsese here at work. I think that they were making use of the environment, and that's the key, is to make use of your environment and use 3D in a way that's going to make you feel like you're actually, following this little boy around in these steamy, crazy environments. And I think that just everything about the 3D in that movie was more effective than if you're throwing a giant paintball at my face.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a paintball that they threw in somebody's face in Jackass 3D. So, on to number 1, Midnight in Paris. And again, 1, 2, and 3 are very hard for me to place, but Midnight in Paris is definitely the movie I had to go with because it was just such a rich movie. The writing was super strong. The visually it was very strong, and where it took you on an adventure like where movies should take you. And Woody Allen did an excellent job at just playing with fantasy and reality and blending them into one. And just he did what he does best. I mean, this is his reality. It's almost, I'll compare it to Larry David's reality. Larry David thinks the world is out to get him. Well, that's not the same for Woody Allen, but Woody Allen has this just absolutely amazing way of blending the real with the fantastical. And that's, I think, I don't want to talk about it, because if you are interested in seeing the movie, you should go and see it.
Yeah, I knew as little as possible when I went into this movie, and I'm very glad I did.
This guy who looked like Frasier recommended it to my parents. Yeah, he looked like Frasier. He recommended it to my parents, and I should say Kelsey Grammer. And that's the only reason I went to see it. I said I'm going to go see it. Then I invited you guys, and I'm like, that was the best decision I made all year. Like, that was so well worth it. It even became a Christmas present for a family member. So
nice.
Yeah. That is my top 20. I swear I mentioned more movies than I could possibly have in 10.
Well,
leaving out
that's
Thor,
the problem
and
I
Thor
had
and
this year
X-Men
too.
and Hangover 2 and Scream 4 and Pirates and Transformers. I mean, they were all excellent, but they did not make the top 10.
Yeah. I'll just start by saying, Sean, I think 5 of the movies that you mentioned in your top 10 all didn't, were just short of, making my top 10. They're definitely honorable mentions. You said, Sucker Punch, definitely, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, X-Men First Class, The Muppets. None of them made it, but they were very, they would have made it if I hadn't, had a top 20, obviously. And a couple other mentions, just really quick, before I get my top 10. A little movie called Super, which I don't even know if it was in theaters. I think it went straight to DVD. But it's a movie with Rainn Wilson and Ellen Page, and he becomes a super, and Liv Tyler's in it, and Kevin Bacon's in it.
Yes.
And Rainn Wilson becomes a superhero because he's trying to get his wife back from Kevin Bacon. And it's a really interesting movie. If you have a chance to see it, definitely watch it. It's not groundbreaking by any means, but it's definitely enjoyable it's really different. It's really violent, actually. Really violent. Sort of like Drive, where it's kind of cool, and then all of a sudden just this violence hits you out of nowhere.
Okay.
But if you have a chance to watch it, I don't think it's on Netflix Instant Watch. I did rent it from Netflix earlier in the year, but it was good. Also, you said, Scream 4 is an honorable mention. That was great. And Source Code, which I actually really enjoyed. Didn't make that top 10, but it was actually a pretty cool movie. I actually wanted to hop in
before you have a lot of momentum. I just wanted to hop in really quickly by saying I completely left out Captain America and meant to talk about it, but I just want to say that was also one of those movies that I don't know if you're going to mention it right now, but I'm kind of feeling you might. It should have been on my top.
Go ahead.
Okay. It was on my top 10. Completely skipped it over because I made so many changes to this damn thing that I even misnumbered my top 10. I'll just go by saying that it really hit the mark in terms of bringing a fresh franchise or character to the Marvel universe.
I agree. I think Captain America was either that and Rise of the Planet of the Apes were two of the biggest surprises of the summer for me.
Yes.
I wasn't really expecting to like either of them, especially Captain America. I went into that movie thinking I was going to be wanting to walk out of the theater.
It was my favorite
and I actually
Marvel
really
movie.
Enjoyed it.
Favorite. I know you like X-Men.
Yeah, and X-Men First Class is great. I bought that Blu-ray. I bought the crap out of that Blu-ray when it came out.
All right, anyway.
But yeah, so the movies that were tight fighting for my top spot, Young Adult just missed out on that's number 11. It just missed out. I really enjoyed Young Adult, and Patton Oswalt gives a performance to talk about as far as I'm concerned. He's absolutely amazing, as well as Charlize Theron.
Yes.
And The Muppets was very close to making my top 10. Couldn't fit it in. So anyway, we talked about those. My number 10, The Descendants. This movie was great, and I was struggling with whether to put this in the top 10 or not. And when comparing it to Young Adult and The Muppets, I think I laughed at this movie more than I laughed at Young Adult and Muppets, I think, combined.
Wow.
There's a lot of really funny scenes in The Descendants, and
it's dark humor.
It's just, what's that?
It's more of a dark humor, though, isn't it?
It is kind of a dark humor, but it's a lot of it's just the human interaction, kind of it's not like there's jokes are being made. It's just the way that these characters are acting, and it gives a portrayal of Hawaii, which is great, and it's some of the best writing I've ever seen in a movie. Like, just the narrative of George Clooney is fantastic, and this comes from oh wow, I'm brain farting here. The director's name.
I can't.
Anyway, he did Sideways, and I really enjoyed Sideways as well. But anyway, yeah. So Descendants made my top 10. It's a really great movie. If you have a chance to see it, I definitely recommend it. It's going to be on the Oscars this year. It's going to be a major contender. I can guarantee that. Number 9, Tintin. I mirror everything you guys said about Tintin, with the addition that the camera work is where this movie shines, I think. Steven Spielberg does with this movie with his camera what he could not do in any of his live action movies. And it's these long takes, especially that third act action scene, was mind blowing.
Yes.
The way the camera weaves in and out of the scene, it's fantastic. Yes. And I had a smile on my face throughout the entire thing.
I couldn't agree more.
What's that?
I couldn't agree more, man. Yeah. If I had more time to talk about it, I think I would talk about Spielberg and his use of everything he does as the Spielberg.
And I feel like he had. I really hope he does more of these movies, like these CG movies, where he can have this virtual camera, and because he does wonders with it. It was absolutely great what he does with this. Okay, so my number 8, Take Shelter. Michael Shannon gives, as far as I'm concerned, the best male performance of the year. He's fantastic, and it's not even that. I mean, obviously you can say that some people overact and some people, but he doesn't underact, but like his character's just, he's a very calm character, and I don't want to give too much away, but like there's parts of which he's not calm, but like.
That's what makes it so powerful. Exactly.
It affects you so much more because you see this character going through this transformation like right before your eyes, and it's incredible.
See, it's hard to talk about, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take Shelter is a fantastic movie. When that comes out on Blu-ray, I'm definitely going to get that movie. My number, what was this? One of mine? 7? 50-50. Did you guys get a chance to see 50-50 this year?
No, I have not.
Okay, 50-50. When it came out, I wanted to see it, and then I just kind of passed over it when it was in theaters, and I was like, well, maybe I'll watch it eventually. And I just watched it not too long ago, and I couldn't believe how great this movie was. It's a take on, like, a kind of a comedy, modern take on, like, cancer from, like, a youth's perspective. Like, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's on, like, 27, and Seth Rogen is really great too as like the comic relief in the movie, and I was laughing like out loud, like really loud at this movie because there's a lot of really funny parts. But like this movie kind of like it comes out of nowhere, the emotion from it. Like at the end of the movie, you're not really too impacted in the beginning, like when you hear about it and you go through stuff, and by the end of the movie, I was like almost in tears because it kind of snuck up on you, and it was like out of nowhere where you're like, wow, this is the emotional catharsis I felt at the end of this movie was fantastic. I would definitely recommend it.
I think that's a movie that got overshadowed just by the abundance of Friday releases during the summer.
It definitely got overshadowed.
Yeah,
it came out like September, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
I heard a lot of great things about it, and based on your impressions of it, I would really like to now see it.
Yeah, I did not expect to kind of like it, and I was like, well, I kind of want to watch it before I put my top 10 together, and I'm really glad it did, because it fit. My number 6 was Melancholia, Lars von Trier's new movie. I haven't seen many of his earlier films, but just speaking off of at least last year's Antichrist, wasn't too crazy about Antichrist, but I did give it like an honorable mention last year just because of its sheer balls, I guess. There's really no other way to put that movie. But Melancholia, Kirsten Dunst gives an award-worthy performance in this movie. It's a movie basically about depression and about the end of the world. and it's got some of the best visuals I've ever seen. I can watch Lars von Trier do slow motion scenes with classical music over it for like hours. It's just, it's amazing. And it's a long movie too. It's close to 3 hours, but it's worth all of it. And some people think that some of it's in like 2 parts, 2 sections of the movie. And some people say the first part kind of drags, but I disagree. It's all about like the study of her depression and stuff, and having a minor in psych, at least. It's really interesting to see how close, like how appropriate and how real her performance is. It's kind of crazy, actually. But yeah, it's an interesting movie. I know a lot of people, it's kind of going to be hit or miss with a lot of people, but I really enjoyed it. My number 5 is Super 8, and I pretty much just mirror everything Alex said about Super 8, and J.J. Abrams is every movie he does is better than the last. And
he's having the time of his life.
He really is, and Super 8 is a fantastic movie. It's got such heart to it, and like this, whenever I remember like through it, it's not even like a monster movie when I think about it. I mean, it's a monster movie, but there's so much more to it than just like the monster aspect of the movie. And like you said, the kids' performances, the way they interact with each other it rivals the Goonies. And I guess that's all I'm going to say about that.
All right.
Number 4, Tree of Life.
Woo.
Which I just recently saw. Well, I bought it for Christmas, and I hadn't been able to watch it till about last week, and it's something to watch. Obviously, it's good since it's in my top 4, but there's so many levels to this movie, and it's a simple movie, but there's so much to take out of it, and there's so many layers to it, I feel. It's a transcending experience to watch this movie, to say the least. It's on a whole other level as far as, not even emotion, but like, well, I mean, visual is one thing about this movie, that whole 30-minute second act is just, it's some of the coolest stuff I've ever seen. I mean, there's really not too much to give away on this, but like, like I said, it's a 30-minute about the kind of the creation of the world, and it's done really well. And this is a movie that I can see being talked about for years and compared to other movies years from now, because there's a lot to talk about, and it's a really interesting movie to talk about because there's so many different ways to look at it. But it's kind of more of it's not as ambiguous. It's just about kind of how you perceive the whole thing, as I guess. So, my number 3 is Hugo. You're going to hear a lot of the same movies not coming up here. Hugo is my number 3. Hugo has redefined the way I look at 3D films. I no longer think that they are just a gimmick or a moneymaker. Hugo makes me feel that there is absolutely a promising future for the use of 3D in films if used correctly, like in this film. I used to think Avatar was the best use of 3D film. Hugo is now the best, as far as I'm concerned. And just the way that Hugo, how it's like just a celebration of film. That's kind of the best way to describe this movie. If you love film, you will love Hugo. And
yes, couldn't agree more.
That's the best way to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know how to talk about most of these films without giving away the best parts of these films. You know, I don't know what to leave in or out, but that is definitely like one of those appreciation films.
It's an awesome. I love this statement that Hugo makes. It's that, it's Martin Scorsese kind of praising the history of film and how it's, you have to preserve it and you have to appreciate it like the original and where it comes from, but yet he does it in a way that's stepping forward and it's making a mark on the future with 3D. It's such an interesting statement that, he's telling you, you have to respect where film has come from and its history, but you got to look towards the future too. And I think that's such an awesome statement about film.
Yeah. I didn't really look at it that way. That's a really interesting way of putting it.
My number 2 is Rango. Now, I struggled my number 1 and my number 2 all year, ever since I saw both the films. And Rango was my favorite movie of the year until I saw my number 1, which I'll get to. But Rango is, since I bought the Blu-ray, I probably watched it about 5 or 6 times, and it never gets old. It's such a good movie. Like, I don't know how to, it's got so many awesome, like, movie references, and it's hilarious, and it's got some of the best, like you said, animation I've ever seen in a film.
Yeah.
And the character design, it's like, in other movies, this is the first movie I think I've seen that's animated that has made me look more at the minor and background characters than the actual thing you're supposed to be looking at.
Very true.
The character designs especially like in the scenes at the bar, are ridiculous. The character designs are fantastic of the townspeople. And it's got really cool, like, even action segments, that do, I mean, they didn't rival Tintin until I saw Tintin, but,
right.
They were pretty good.
It's like watching, it's really like, it's like an epic Western.
Yeah, it is. So my number 1, like Sean, is Drive. It's the coolest movie of the year, by far, and it's got the best soundtrack of any movie this year by far, and it's got such emotion to it and style. And I think that's what I really appreciate about this movie is its style and its kind of just like it doesn't care that it's not going to be a huge. I mean, it actually did way better than I think most people thought it was going to do. But I love that the director just kind of went Nicholas Winding Refn, just kind of made it like, oh, I'm going to make this movie in this style. I don't care. I'm not trying to appease anyone. And I'm so glad he did because it's such a cool movie. And I can't wait to buy it. I can't wait to watch it again. I've been dying to watch it again since I saw it.
Needless to say, I listen to Kavinsky's Night Call all the time when I'm driving. So,
yeah. But so yeah, so that's my top 10.
All right.
I just wanted to mention real quick, just a few of my disappointments of the year. Thor, Green Lantern, and Hobo with a Shotgun are probably my most disappointing movies of the year that I've seen. Just to point them out.
Can you explain why Hobo with a Shotgun was disappointing?
I was expecting more of a. I enjoyed Grindhouse so much that when I saw this movie, when I saw Hobo with Shotgun, I was expecting more of a Grindhouse experience. I wasn't expecting so much of a I know the Grindhouse movies are very over the top, but this was like over maximum of the top, kind of. Like, it was so ridiculous. Like, there's a threshold of ridiculousness that I can take, and this shot over it by about 20 yards.
It went to the route of, like, trauma entertainment.
Oh, wow. It just didn't do it for me. If it had been more like the trailer, I think I would have enjoyed it more. But it just got so, I don't know. It got silly even at some points. It was so out there. I don't know.
I actually had to check to see if it was produced by Trauma, because I just assumed it was at a certain point. But, I mean, nothing will beat Machete out of the whole list, but that's a whole just different
story. I agree. Oh, and did Machete came out last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember when that came out. That came out last year. And, but yeah, like I said, like, the Green Lantern was kind of meh, and Thor, it was a disappointment to me too. I know a lot of people love that, but.
It was good. I mean, the comic relief was excellent. And the visuals were great. Like, where they lived, Thor and his minions. But other than that, yeah, I see what you mean. It's okay.
Yeah. All right, so guys, thank you very much. I think we can all agree that a lot of our lists were actually very similar. I think we all had Drive, Rango, and Tintin on our lists.
Yeah. Yep.
So that seemed to be the consensus of our movies anyway. So yeah, thank you. This will probably be an annual thing, so we'll have you guys back next year. So make sure you watch as many movies as humanly possible before the end of the year.
Oh yeah. Well, not only that, but this coming year will probably be, in my opinion, the greatest summer by far. But I'm very interested to see the independent pictures this year. So
Yeah.
I will make sure to write down every single movie in a list.
Yeah, so you don't forget.
Exactly.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Cinema Clash. Please visit cinemaclash.blogspot.com for past episodes and ajazznetworks.weebly.com for our other great podcasts. And if you have any questions, comments, or even a suggestion for a battle, email us at cinemaclash@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 623-AJAZZ64. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook for the latest updates.
You can find this show and more at Ajazz Networks. Originally different media for your personal taste.